Hello everyone and welcome to this Gemba360 Back to Basics training session. My name is Nehal Samara. I'm the General Counsel and Legal Director here at Kaizen Synergy Law Firm, and I'd like to welcome you all to today's session. This session is being recorded and we will open this up for questions and answers during the QA part of the session. If you do have any questions during the session as we're going through, by all means use the questions panel on your webinar recording. As always, we'd like to pay our respects to the traditional owners upon the lands on which we all meet. While this session is being run by webinar and recorded, we do pay our respects to the traditional owners accordingly. So let's jump in and have a look at the session info and some of the basics that we just need to cover off here as well too. Now, with this session, we do focus on the organization profile. It is probably one of the most important parts of the Gemba system. The Gemba system, you will hear from even our support desk if you call in or during our setups of your Gemba dashboard, that Gemba is based on a person's position in your agency. And you'll see that this is important when we do start to look at the organization profile and what it actually is. So it is from here where a lot of the groups and teams are created. The reporting lines is also set up. It doesn't actually matter what type of structure your organization has. You will find that in the organization profile, this is the section which we affectionately call here at Gemba360 as the backbone of your Gemba dashboard. And it doesn't matter what sort of teams you have as well too, not only positions, but also groups and teams can also be set up. So this includes things like your admin, your management level, your exec level, or your committee of management or boards, as you might call them as well too, and also a range of other specific items as well too, which is really around your governance and core setup. So let's jump in and have a look at your Gemba dashboard. And as I said, we're going to focus on the organization profile. So when we log in, you will see this screen here, which is be very similar to yours. Now, the organization profile is found under the menu bar, and it is only opened to Gemba admins. So when you go in, here it is here, and you can essentially see the organization profile. Now, let's go through each of these tabs and I'll show you what and why these are so important. Now, essentially, when we open up the organization profile, if I open up things like the company details, this will show you your company details. It'll show you name, ACN number, ABN number, postal street address, and also the contact position, which is usually going to be a Gemba admin. Now, what that then means, if I go back and we can use the slider menu on the left-hand side, what we start to look at here is the governance and compliance section for your agency. The next part that we look at is obviously the trading names. Now, the trading names is, let's say, if I have ABCD Corporation, it is not just your, I might have this, and I'll put that in there. Or you might also have other business trading names that you use. Now, the reason that we have these company details and trading names is that we look at things like the ASICs register, the ACNC, the charities register. We look at also what business names your agency has as well too. All of this information is building your governance reporting requirements for your agency. We'll also have a look at your company registration details. So whether you're an incorporated entity, public company, company limited by guarantee, company limited by shares, a state government entity. So for example, if you're listed under the Health Services Act, for example, you might be a state government entity, etc. And we'll also keep this information here because this will be what drives your governance updates. The next tab that we also look at is the taxation status. Now, the taxation status is an important one. Essentially, when you go in, it'll actually look at whether you have GST exemptions, whether you're a charity, what type of charity that you're in as well too, whether you've got any GST, FBT or income tax or deductible gift recipient status. And essentially, we review this information before the start of each financial year. Now, we're in the new financial year at the moment, so this information gets reviewed. And if you go in and check this, most likely you'll see that we've actually reviewed the dates up to the next financial year. So most of you will see that these actually come up to the 30th of the 6th, 2023, for example. Now, what these sections drive: home, company details, trading names, registration status, taxation status, also the accreditation sector and services I'll cover off now. So, and I'll come back to information technology. Accreditations is basically the list of quality standards that your agency needs to comply with. Now, each one of these that is listed on this group will actually drive, and I'm just going to jump back to the main notice board for a minute. Here it is here. Will actually drive what quality standards you actually see in your quality journals. Okay, and this is where it starts to link together. You will also find that some of these ones we may also have, and all of these ones will actually list different versions of the standards. Now, they're not listed here because it will depend on when your accreditation cycle is. So let's say I go in and select Rainbow Tick, for example. Essentially what this will do is trigger a notification for your quality journals to be active, and we will actually contact you specifically on what is the, I'll call it, timeline of your audit. Is it next month? Is it 12 months? Is it 3 years kind of process? And we'll actually have a look at that. The next thing we'll actually look at under the organization profile is the sector. So what sector does your agency actually work in? Now, most people may pick, for example, health and leisure, but if you also work in community health services, again, it's the type of sector that your agency works in, and you can actually pick multiple sectors for this as well too. So we have even, for example, primary healthcare settings as well too. Again, depending on what type of services you actually deliver and what's part of the sector you work in. The next part that we look at is services. Now, the services is based on the funding agreements from the state and Commonwealth government directions. So all of these services are based on funding lines, and so you should be able to find a number of different services that your agency might deliver. So, for example, we might pick up social work, for example. You might also do disability services, mental health services, NDIS services. So you can go through and actually provide and actually identify different services that you might also deliver. Now, I'm just going to pick a few of these. Now, what these does is this. If I pick up, let's say, migrant services as well, so you can pick up a number of different services. Now, here is where it starts to really get interesting for yourselves. Now, we've just gone through, looked at company details, trading name, all the way down to taxation, sector, services. What this drives is the legal updates. These sections here, up to services, will drive the legal updates that you get within your agency. The legal updates themselves is directly connected to your organization profile. It is looked at, and what we look at is company details, trading names, company registration, taxation, what sector and what services you specifically work in. With that, we will also look at where your company is based. So, for example, if you're in Victoria or WA or New South Wales or Queensland or the likes, Tassie as well, obviously. Again, depending on what jurisdiction and where your company is or agency is based, will actually drive what legal updates you get to your agency. Now, on this, what I will add, and I'm just going to jump back to your updates, is that this will then update the legal profile, what legislation you also will see, and what legislation drives your updates specifically. Now, for most of you, if you go into the legal profile and click on that, what you will see is a list of legislation. And again, as I said, this will drive what updates you get. Now, the other part is you can also, which I will add to this within your org profile, is also update your legislative updates list as well. So let's say if we wanted to include as part of this, Fred, just to get all of the legislative updates, I can do that by directly going to my menu bar and selecting legislative updates and actually looking at, well, who do I actually want to get these updates sent to as well. So you've got this access to actually look at all of this information. Now, going back down, but we will cover that in another session. The next part of this looks at things like your groups and teams and your organizational charts. Now, with this, some of the things we will look at, and we will go through this in a bit more detail over the upcoming weeks and return to this, is things like your groups and teams. So remember I said to you at the start, one of the functions that we have in Gemba is looking at some of the core basic information on not only who reports to whom, but also what are the teams. So you might have executive level, management, and committee of management. Okay, so we've got a few things to look at here. I want to look at who reports to whom, and I want to look at what are the teams that I have in here. Now, how I do this within the organization profile is by going firstly to groups and teams, and I can click on groups and teams, and you can see I've got an all staff team, I've got a board of management team, and I've got different teams that are set up. So for example, committee of management quality team. You can call this anything you like. Now, you might also have, let's say, as part of this, not only a quality and risk team, but I might have a committee of management finance team. Okay, finance committee. Okay, let's call it that. And that might be what it's called. Now, if I wanted to update any of these, I can simply click on these links. And let's say I do the finance committee. I can actually go in. I can actually select a couple of people that we have in here. Here we are here. And I simply select save. And you can see now that they've been added to the finance committee. Again, why this starts to become important is you can now start to see if I go into things like the notice board, and let's say I've just set up a team now, and I've set up the quality committee of management finance committee, and I can see that that now appears in the notice board. If I go into areas like the Gemba docs, let me do that right now for you to show you how these things are all connected. Then I can actually, when I go in, I will come back to this over the next few weeks. But again, the permission levels. So let's say I wanted to go in and have a look at the Committee of Management, Finance Committee. Here we are here. I can now see that this group has now been created here as well too. So you can see the organization profile actually drives a lot of the functions within the Gemba dashboard. The other parts that we now look at is reporting matrix. The reporting matrix actually shows who reports to whom. Now, what does this mean? Let me go back to my little diagram here. So I want to actually see who are the employees that report to each individual person. Now, most of the time at Gemba, we'll actually set this up for you. So we'll actually show you, but if these change, you can actually go in and actually have a look at the reporting line. So in this case, I'm going to say, right, here it is here. Studo, I'm actually going to say, is actually going to report to Dino, for example. And I know that the acting general services manager actually reports directly to, for example, let me have Barney here. So you can see from all of these that you can actually change the reporting structure within your agency simply by going into the reporting matrix. And again, we just remind you to save those once you've changed those. The other parts that we've also looked at is things like client record systems. Now, the types of client record systems that you might have. So we've got a whole list to actually choose from. Again, why we actually keep these. So let's say if you run Care Manager, you might run a bunch of others. You might run Gemba, you might run Best Practice as the client record systems. But this also includes your other finance systems as well too. So we might include Xero, we might include MyOb as well too, for example. Again, why do we include these? Because essentially when we're sending out the legal updates to you, if we have this information in, then we will actually not only give you legal updates specific about the general information that we're talking about here in the first few sections, but we'll also relate it back to you the type of client record system that you might already use. So for example, we know that at this point in time, there's a lot of challenges with VIMs and agencies are migrating onto the Gemba360 risk management system. Again, that's another client record system. Again, so with it from an incident reporting side, this is where you can actually have this information at hand as well too, and we'll provide you that info from a legal updates point of view. The other parts that we will look at is things like site and local council regions. Now, site and local council regions, why we put this in. So if I put suite, let's say suite 11, or I wanted to update my address here, 974 Main Road, Eltham. This is where our law firm is based. Now, I want to actually select from here Nillumbik Shire. Now, you can see I've got this on here. So I'm simply going to select, we've got a list of all the different shires on here. Now, the reason that we have this, and this is for your individual sites, the reason that we have this is, again, from the legal update side, we will actually provide updates based on the Commonwealth legislation, the state government legislation, and also local council laws as well too. So from a work health and safety perspective, or if council laws change, so you've got all the legal updates from a governance, risk and compliance perspective covered off from your organization profile. If there's also work health and safety issues that you need to add in, then again, we will update you and your compliance system will catch all of this based on the sites that you actually have. Now, you can change these sites as you add them, or you can delete them, but essentially it'll actually just mark that it's been archived for you. And you can simply add. So if you get a new site, for example, just add that in and select the shire that you have. Again, if you're unsure of the shire and you need some assistance, of course, you can always use the online support by our support desk as well. Now, the very last thing I am going to cover off is form access and admin. This is the last section of the organization profile, but it is a very important section. Now, what does this cover and what is linked to this? Right. Now, to explain this, let me go back to our dashboard. On the left-hand side, you will see a range of tools, and I'm just moving them up and down. For example, over the last few years, we've had the COVID daily assessment form. You might also have the feedback form as well too, surveys that you might use as well. Now, with these forms, you might have a person that is responsible or a team that you need to give access to it. Now, on this, you will see all of the forms that I've got listed here: daily assessment, workstation, vaccine survey, screening tool, vaccination stuff. All these ones that I've got here are listed up and down here. What you can do from here, client screening tool, for example, let's pick on this one. So you might say that there's a client screening tool that you're using as part of your quality audits. Now, quite simply, I want to give the Committee of Management access to these forms, but the form administrator, who's usually the person that actually undertakes and are responsible for doing all of this, in this case, I'm going to actually make this and I'm going to make it Gregory Smith as the compliance officer. And I'm going to save that. So now, what happens if I go into the client survey form as part of this as well too? And here we are here. I can open this up and I'm going to click on add a new entry. Right. Now, when I go into this, essentially all I can see, because I'm not part of the committee of management and I've purposely picked one to show you how this works, and I'm also not the compliance officer responsible for this. So all I can see is my forms, plus also the forms of users that I manage, and that's it. I can't see anything else. The other people that are the admins of this form or the people that are responsible for it will also see all the forms and also be able to archive it. So they will have 2 extra tabs that they can see here. Now, what that looks like, if I go into this for you and show you how this works, is essentially this form here. So this is an example of one where I've got my forms plus all forms and archive. So if I ever wanted to archive a form because I'm an admin for this particular set, I can actually archive it. Here it is here, and that's been done. I can also unarchive it, but this is something we will cover off another stage. So the organization form tools allows you to control who has access to see all the forms. So for example, the feedback forms or client survey forms is all controlled by this section. So as you can see, the organization profile is an important part of the Gemba dashboard. It is a key part to actually what we affectionately call the backbone of the Gemba dashboard itself. With that said, more than happy to stay online and answer any questions. I can see one has come through, and thank you for reminding me about this. Someone's just asked, how often do we actually review it? You will find in the compliance calendar, which is what we're going to be covering off next week, is actually every quarter just to run down and check to see if this information is accurate. Generally, we'll do an audit. It will actually count towards your quality review as well too that you need to do for each 3 years, because essentially this is what drives your compliance system to make sure that it's up to date. With it, if you have users, you can also cease users and update information as well. But generally we say once a quarter is generally the best practice to actually use for this within your agency. With that said, more than happy to stay online and answer any questions that you have. You will find that, as always, the Gemba system is based, just a take-home message, on your position and your organizational teams and groups as well too. Importantly, I will add that obviously Gemba is based and designed to be mobile, and it is especially something now as the pandemic changes our rules of what we see. It is something that you can actually access and update at any time that you need to. More than happy to stay online and answer any questions that you might have. If you are watching this recording after today's live session, then by all means, and if you do have any questions, then by all means, please reach out to us on 1300 360 360 or email us at support@gemba360.com.